These days, it's pretty rare to see a new first-person shooter set during World War II. In the last 5 years, the only notable titles that come to mind are Call of Duty Vanguard, Hell Let Loose, and Enlisted. I'm sure I'm missing a few, so please don't crucify me. But what happened? Why is the modern FPS landscape so devoid of the World War II setting? Back in the early 2000s, it was everywhere. While titles like Wolfenstein 3D in the early 90s dabbled in the World War II setting, it wasn't until Medal of Honor that the floodgates truly opened. The game's success paved the way for a wave of FPS titles set in the conflict, leading to the birth of an entirely new subgenre of military shooters. Games like Call of Duty and Battlefield 1942 introduced millions to the decades-old war, captivating audiences with their immersive gameplay and historical settings. For me, these games were especially significant. They were my first introduction to the FPS genre. They sparked a fascination that extended far beyond the screen. Many nights I found myself either hunched over my computer engrossed in the action, or diving into books borrowed from the library to learn more about World War II. These games weren't just entertainment, they ignited a deep curiosity about history that stayed with me. As time went on, my interests evolved. I moved away from the tales of heroics on the Western Front and gravitated toward more fictionalized stories. The first-person shooter landscape shifted. Before long, World War II games became a distant memory, overshadowed by the rising tide of modern and futuristic shooters. Even Call of Duty, a franchise rooted in the last Great War, eventually left the era behind. After the massive success of Modern Warfare, Activision managed one last hurrah for the genre with World at War, arguably one of the best entries in the series, but it was clear the industry's focus had moved on. Sledgehammer Games was founded by Glenn Schofield and Michael Condrey, who previously collaborated on Dead Space while at EA Redwood Shores. After leaving EA, the duo approached Activision with an ambitious proposal for a third-person Call of Duty title. Described as a blend of Call of Duty and Uncharted, Activision approved the idea and Sledgehammer spent about 6 months developing a prototype featuring roughly 15 minutes of gameplay. Unfortunately, despite extensive searching, I haven't been able to find any footage of this prototype. It's said to have been set during Vietnam and have a horror twist. It certainly would have been interesting to see. At the time, Activision was grappling with the fallout of firing Infinity Ward leads Jason West and Vince Zampella, who would go on to found Respawn Entertainment and take a significant portion of Infinity Ward's team with them. I'll cover that story if I ever delve into the Modern Warfare trilogy. No, not that one. The good one. This upheaval left Activision with a skeleton crew to complete the highly anticipated Modern Warfare 3. In response, Activision approached Sledgehammer Games with an offer: abandon their third-person Call of Duty project and help finish Modern Warfare 3. It was a risky proposition for Sledgehammer as their expertise lay in third-person games. However, they decided the gamble was worth it and agreed to take on the challenge. That decision would pay off as Modern Warfare 3 quickly became the fastest-selling Call of Duty title of all time. This success solidified Sledgehammer Games' place as a permanent fixture in the Call of Duty franchise. The studio was integrated into Activision's new 3-year, 3-developer cycle for the series, with their first solo entry being Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. This marked the second game in the franchise set in the distant future, and the one featuring Kevin Spacey. Advanced Warfare sold well and received critical acclaim. It also spawned one of the best memes to come out of this franchise. Call of Duty titles continued to lean into futuristic and experimental themes as the series progressed. The next 2 entries, Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, developed by Treyarch and Infinity Ward respectively, would see success as well, but review a bit lower than Advanced Warfare. The trailer for Infinite Warfare was actually the second most disliked video on YouTube at one point. Call of Duty World War II was announced in early 2017 and released later that same year. I vividly remember the excitement I felt when the announcement dropped. At the time, the last Call of Duty game I had played was Ghosts, which I didn't even finish. But the World War II multiplayer beta completely rekindled my interest. I was blown away. It felt like classic Call of Duty, just as I remembered it. The movement was a bit smoother, and while the guns and attachments might not have been perfectly historically accurate, I didn't care. It was a fresh World War II shooter with the signature Call of Duty polish that only Activision could deliver. I played a ton of World War II when it came out, but mostly the multiplayer. It wasn't until a few years later when my buddy Mike asked if I'd ever played the campaign that I even really thought about it. At that point, I didn't really take Call of Duty stories seriously, especially after Black Ops 4 came out the following year without a campaign, so my expectations were pretty low. But when Mike urged me to check it out, I did, and damn, I was missing out. The team at Sledgehammer Games had several reasons for wanting to return to the last Great War, and there's an insightful interview with Michael Condrey where he dives into some of them. To research the conflict, Sledgehammer traveled the world meeting with veterans and survivors to hear their stories firsthand. One of their main goals was to tell the story in a way that underscores the importance of preventing such atrocities from happening again. Since many World War II veterans had already passed away, given the war had ended 72 years prior, Sledgehammer was determined to preserve and share their stories. While filled with fictional characters, the story follows a squad from the real-life 1st Infantry Division of the United States Army. The 1st Infantry Division deployed to Europe in 1942 after the attacks of Pearl Harbor. They were the first to combat enemy troops in North Africa and Sicily, the first to land on the beaches of Normandy, and the first to capture a German city, Aachen. Unlike the earlier Call of Duty titles, we mainly play as one character and only focus on the European theater. The protagonist is Ronald Red Daniels, a newly enlisted soldier from Longview, Texas. Red joined the Army in March of 1944 looking to do something greater with his life. He's your classic all-American farm boy who could often be heard reminiscing about his high school football games and his sweetheart Hazel. Like any good World War II movie, the game centers around a squad of characters that mesh really well together. World War II's campaign is packed full of extremely talented actors doing voice and mocap work. I was a bit surprised while reading through the cast list. Here are some names that really stuck out to me. Jonathan Tucker plays Robert Zussman, a Jewish-American soldier from Chicago who quickly becomes Red's closest friend. Tucker is a traditional actor, and this was his first and only video game role that I could find. He was in The Virgin Suicides, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, Snowfall, and Westworld, among a ton of other projects. Josh Duhamel plays William Pearson, a hard-ass sergeant grappling with mistakes he's made in the past. Pearson, while being an unlikable asshole at times, has one of my favorite character arcs in any Call of Duty title. Josh Duhamel is probably best known for the Transformers movies, where he plays a similar kind of character. He was also married to Fergie, apparently. The last name I recognized was Jeffrey Pierce, who plays Turner. Turner is the lieutenant and acts as a father figure to the squad. Now, I swear to you, I did not know this going into the game, but he also plays Mother in the Medal of Honor reboot. What are the odds? Rounding out the cast list are some names I didn't recognize, but who all did amazing work. The characters are so well written and acted throughout this campaign, I cannot overstate that enough. I watched a video where this guy brutally dissected every historical inaccuracy in this game, and by the end of it I was exhausted. So I'll say this. I don't really care about historical accuracy in games like this. I understand that the developers boasted about how well researched and accurate this game was, but at the end of the day, stuff is going to get through. In the case of this video, a lot of stuff. But that doesn't really affect the way I view the game, and as long as it didn't have like M16s floating around, I think it'll be fine. As you'd expect with most Call of Duty titles, you get 2 weapon slots, a knife, and 2 types of grenades. You could swap either weapon for one on the ground, allowing you to pick up enemy guns and special weapons like a flamethrower and rocket launchers. You have tactical grenades, which are usually smokes, and frag grenades. I found frags and smokes to be super useful during the campaign. It definitely feels like the developers designed levels with your entire kit in mind. An immediately noticeable change is the inclusion of a non-regenerating health bar. Instead, for the first time since the original Call of Duty, in order to heal you need to consume a health pack. These can be picked up during a mission or resupplied via Zussman, and you can only carry 4 at a time, so use them wisely. Another new feature in the World War II campaign is being able to activate abilities from your squad members. Your squad members have meters that will fill up the more kills that you get. Once it's full, you could activate the ability if you're close enough. Zussman throws you a medkit, Turner resupplies your ammo, Aiello throws you a grenade to call in a mortar strike, Styles refills your grenades, and Pearson can highlight enemies for you. Utilizing these abilities makes the game a lot easier, especially on veteran difficulty. I think this is a neat inclusion that really emphasizes relying on your squad mates. I feel like I underutilized the mortar strikes, but everything else was extremely helpful, especially being able to mark enemies during chaotic conflicts. I'm sad to see that these changes didn't stick around for future entries. There is a strong emphasis on heroics throughout the campaign, with every mission having a set number of heroic action opportunities. These are usually actions like dragging someone to safety, saving an ally who's about to be killed, or getting enemies to surrender. These are interesting bits of gameplay that play to the themes of the story. Red is on a path of redemption, and going out of his way to save others makes complete sense for his character. This is the exact trait which causes him to bump heads with the squad sergeant, William Pearson, for reasons we uncover later on. I don't think I need to go over how Call of Duty multiplayer works. I think we all get the picture. Create classes, get kill streaks, each game tries to tweak or change a little aspect, and everyone hates it. It's a tale as old as time itself. After a few years of exosuits and jump boosters, players were either relieved to be back on the ground, or they yearned for the air. Whichever side you're on, I think everyone can agree that the standard World War II multiplayer experience was fine. I picked it back up after finishing the campaign and was really glad to see that some things never change. There was one thing about World War II multiplayer that I loved though. When it originally came out, I would always play the War Game Mode. At launch, there were 3 different maps that each had their own unique objective-based game modes. Players would need to work together to complete objectives such as taking Omaha Beach, safely escorting tanks to an objective, or repairing a damaged bridge. I spent hours cycling between these 3 maps, and it was probably the most fun I had with a Call of Duty game in a long time. D-Day needs no introduction. It remains one of the most iconic and pivotal moments of World War II. The landing at Omaha Beach, in particular, was a harrowing assault where American forces faced brutal German defenses, including fortified bunkers, machine gun nests, and a heavily mined shoreline. Despite devastating casualties and chaotic conditions, the sheer determination of the soldiers allowed them to break through and secure a critical foothold in Nazi-occupied France. In Call of Duty World War II, the depiction of Omaha Beach strives to capture the intensity, chaos, and heroism of the invasion, offering players a visceral and cinematic experience of one of history's most defining battles. Taking place on June 6, 1944, during the invasion of Normandy, Daniels and the 1st Infantry Division land on the heavily defended Omaha Beach. After their landing craft is hit and many soldiers are killed, Daniels, shaken by the chaos, is guided by Turner to find some cover.
Take the Bangalore and get to the seawall!
Despite the overwhelming enemy fire, Daniels successfully breaches the seawall with the help of Zussman, allowing the US forces to push forward. They clear 4 German bunkers, and during the assault on the 5th, Zussman is gravely wounded trying to save Daniels. Daniels drags Zussman through enemy lines to a field hospital where Zussman is treated. After holding off German reinforcements and disabling a cannon in the most ridiculous way possible,
Fire in the hole!
the beach is finally secured. 7 weeks after the Normandy invasion, the US launches Operation Cobra to break out of Normandy. with the 1st Infantry Division tasked with retaking Marginy. Zussman reunites with them, but Pearson doubts his readiness for combat. Riding with the 745th Tank Battalion, we get a bit of insight into why Pearson is such a dick. According to the tank gunner, Pearson had made a bad call during the Battle of Kasserine Pass and got a lot of his men killed. This resulted in Pearson getting a demotion. During the conversation, the convoy is ambushed by German Stukas. Daniels mans an anti-aircraft gun to repel the attack, allowing the platoon to rejoin the tanks and advance through the fields, dismantling enemy defenses along the way. They witness atrocities, including civilians executed in an orchard before being ordered to rescue Charlie Company and Marigny. After clearing out German forces, Pearson establishes a perimeter and prepares to liberate the town the following morning, despite tension within the squad. The night before the attack on Marigny's center, Daniels is haunted by a reoccurring childhood dream in which he fails to protect his brother Paul from a wolf, leaving Paul severely injured. Zussman, eager to prove himself to Pearson, also struggles with sleeplessness, and the two have a bit of a heartwarming conversation. During the battle, Pearson's squad assaults a German stronghold at a church, only to discover it is an ambush. After repelling a fierce counterattack and disabling anti-aircraft guns, with sniper support from the church tower, disaster strikes when German fire collapses the tower, killing 2 squad members. Daniels narrowly escapes the falling structure, but faces Pearson's wrath over the losses. The platoon regroups and defends the ruins against reinforcements until air support, signaled by Daniels, devastates the enemy forces. Although Daniels is briefly knocked unconscious, the squad reunites in victory as Marigny is secured.
Now we're gonna find out what you're really made of.
Colonel Davis tasks Turner and Pearson's platoon with a critical mission to stop a German Panzerzug train carrying V-2 rockets near Argentan, with assistance from SOE operatives Vivian Harris and Arthur Crowley. This mission introduces us to the stealth mechanics, which are fairly simplistic. Enemies can see and hear you, so you need to move slowly and stay out of sight. If someone's suspicious, an icon will begin to fill over their heads, and if it fills completely, they're aware of you. If they're not immediately killed, they will call for help. You could still prevent the enemy from being alerted if you're quick enough to take someone out, which was a nice feature. I hate when you alert an enemy in stealth games, they don't actually do anything, but somehow everybody else knows where you are, so it was cool to be able to take them out before that was the case. The team infiltrates a train station, but is discovered, forcing the train to depart. Daniels and Zussman give chase in a Kubelwagen, but crash into the train, becoming trapped beneath it until they narrowly escape before it derails in a massive explosion. The wreck leaves Daniels unconscious, but Zussman revives him and they fend off German troops with the help of resistance fighter Rousseau. Though Rousseau criticizes the train's destruction, which disrupted her plans to use the explosives for a Paris operation, the team salvages vital documents from the wreckage. These papers will allow Rousseau to infiltrate the Germans for the next phase of the mission. Vivian drives Crowley and Rousseau to the Gestapo-controlled police station in Paris, where Rousseau, disguised as German auxiliary, infiltrates to secure explosives from SOE contact Fischer. Using the resistance passphrase Verlaine, Rousseau identifies Fischer, who directs her to Heinrich's office to avoid suspicion. While in Heinrich's office, Rousseau is confronted and attacked by him after he recognizes her identity, but she kills him in self-defense. Meeting Fischer in the war room, they exchange briefcases, but Fischer is arrested as the Gestapo discovers his theft of the explosives. Rousseau escapes the building amidst a lockdown, narrowly avoiding detection, when Crowley intervenes and kills a suspicious officer. She plants explosives on the compound gates, and after detonation, Turner's platoon and French resistance forces storm the headquarters. Following fierce fighting and a German surrender, Daniels and Zussman help secure the building against a Wehrmacht counterattack. With the enemy retreating, the resistance celebrates as Paris is liberated, making a significant victory. It's worth noting that the 1st Infantry Division did not in fact liberate Paris. I believe it was the 4th Infantry Division, but I guess Sledgehammer just really wanted this mission in the game. Months after liberating Paris, the 1st Infantry Division fights in Aachen, the first German city attacked by the Allies. Daniels hesitates to read a letter from Hazel, fearing bad news. The next day, Turner's platoon assaults the Aachen theater but is surrounded by German forces. Daniels, Aiello, and Pearson call for help from Perez in the 745th Tank Battalion, who arrive after a fierce battle with German tanks to save the platoon. The unit presses on to Hotel Allendorf, battling through ruins to reach the German stronghold. In the hotel basement, they discover civilians, including Erica and her sister Anna, seeking refuge. Turner insists on evacuating them, but Pearson warns it's too risky. During the evacuation, Anna goes missing and Daniels rescues her amidst enemy fire. As the truck carrying civilians departs under heavy attack, Erica is killed by German gunfire. The loss leaves Turner shaken, realizing Pearson was right about the dangers of their intervention. At a staging ground, Davis confronts Turner and Pearson for deviating from their mission to rescue civilians, but they share responsibility. 3 weeks later, in the Hürtgen forest, Daniels learns Hazel is pregnant, and the platoon congratulates him before preparing for their next mission, capturing Hill 493, which I found out wasn't a real hill. It was actually just called Hill 400, and I don't know why they included Hill 493 in this game. After defending a bridge against SS troops and a Panzer IV, Pearson leads the platoon north while Turner's group, including Daniels, moves east to cover their flank. Turner's team attacks a German mortar position but is caught in an artillery trap, forcing them to flee. Daniels is knocked unconscious by a blast and awakens to hallucinations of his brother Paul, encouraging him to persevere. Sneaking through enemy lines, Daniels reunites with Turner and they fight through a bunker and sniper positions to rejoin their squad. Together they clear a fortified mill, fend off an SS assault, and prepare to regroup with Pearson's squad for the final push on Hill 493. After setting up a perimeter at the mill, Turner's squad learns that Pearson has initiated an attack on Hill 493 with his team and 2nd Platoon, prompting Turner to lead his men to support the effort. They ascend the hill, rescue a wounded Aiello, and clear machine gun nests pinning down Pearson's squad. Daniels escorts an engineer up the hill to destroy the bunker, but the blast kills the engineer as well. After clearing the bunker, Turner and Pearson clash over leadership decisions but agree to press on to destroy artillery targeting the Allied convoy below. The team takes out several guns before encountering a Tiger II tank. Daniels disables it with thermite, but the tank commander fatally shoots Turner as Daniels fights off advancing Germans. The guy comes out of the tank like a supervillain. Turner sacrifices himself to cover the squad's retreat. The next day, Pearson, now hardened and resolute, promotes Daniels to corporal and demands absolute loyalty, marking a grim shift in the platoon's dynamic following Turner's death. In the Ardennes forest during winter, Daniels, now a corporal, joins the squad in a somber Christmas toast to their fallen leader, Turner. A drunken Pearson also offers a grim toast, warning the squad that he won't be able to protect them when the convoy arrives. The next morning, amidst freezing conditions, Daniels resupplies the eastern flank and spots German troops, fending them off before learning from a new ally, Howard, that an attack on the convoy is imminent. When the convoy arrives, a German artillery barrage and tank assault leave the squad scrambling. Following Howard's suggestion, they secure a radio to call in air support. The 509th Fighter Squadron arrives, and Daniels uses smoke grenades to mark targets, helping to neutralize German forces. However, when Pearson recklessly calls an airstrike dangerously close to their position, the squad is caught in the blast. Shaken but alive, they regroup with tensions mounting as Pearson's increasingly unstable leadership casts a shadow over their victory. After the Battle of the Bulge, the 1st Infantry Division escorts German prisoners when a tense exchange between Pearson and Zussman over compassion for an enemy prisoner leads to the discovery of German plans to destroy the bridge at Remagen. The squad ambushes a German convoy, commandeers a truck, and uses it to assault an airbase. During the mission, Daniels and Zussman provide overwatch but are captured after being knocked out by tank fire. Zussman is taken as a POW while Daniels disobeys Pearson's orders to rescue him, only to fail and suffer injuries. Pearson confronts Daniels but is stopped by other squad members. Meanwhile, Zussman is taken to a German POW camp, enduring brutal treatment as he protects fellow prisoners. Later, Daniels learns from Davis about Pearson's guilt over losing men at Kasserine Pass, providing context for his actions. As Daniels recovers from his wounds, he reflects on his friendship with Zussman and their promise to survive the war. Determined to rescue Zussman, Daniels decides not to return home and attempts to re-enlist in Pearson's platoon. Confronting a drunken Pearson, Daniels refuses to back down, pointing out Pearson's own disobedience at Kasserine Pass. After a heated exchange, Daniels tears up his discharge papers, proving his commitment, which eventually persuades Pearson to let him rejoin. The next day, the 1st Infantry Division launches an attack on the Germans at Remagen to secure the bridge over the Rhine. Despite heavy resistance, the squad clears towers, crosses a damaged bridge under enemy fire, and neutralizes German planes with AA guns. They then force the German defenders to surrender, securing the bridge and opening the way into the Rhine. Afterward, Pearson informs the squad of nearby POW camps, and they prepare to search for Zussman among the survivors. After liberating several POW camps, the 1st Infantry Division learns Zussman is being held at a labor camp in Berga. Upon arriving, they discover the horrific conditions and atrocities committed by Metz and his men. Following a trail, Pearson, Daniels, Stiles, and Aiello venture into the forest to find Zussman, only to witness Metz preparing to execute him. Daniels kills Metz and rescues the severely beaten Zussman. Afterward, the division returns to France, where Daniels bids farewell to his comrades. He visits Zussman in the hotel and they reflect on their promise to see the war through. Back home, Daniels honors his fallen brother Paul by placing his bronze star on his grave, and embraces Hazel with their newborn son, Joseph Turner Daniels. Sledgehammer Games set out to craft a campaign that would serve as a sobering reminder for the harrowing realities of war, ensuring its lessons aren't forgotten. The game is packed full of intense combat, Sledgehammer taking full advantage of their engine's graphic capabilities to make the action feel as real as possible. While following the 1st Infantry's assault on Western Europe, Call of Duty World War II succeeds in telling a compelling narrative, albeit one that has been told many times before. While missions like the completely fictionalized Liberation are fun, they stand in opposition of the developer's original goal, to honor the stories of real veterans. Despite some historical inaccuracies, it was refreshing to return to the World War II setting after years of increasingly futuristic entries. The change of pace gave the game a distinct identity and a sense of groundedness that had been missing from the franchise for a while. It felt like an homage to Call of Duty's roots, recapturing some of the charm that made the early games in the series so beloved. Unfortunately, the game also highlights a broader issue with the Call of Duty franchise: the relentless yearly release cycle. While it ensures a constant flow of revenue, it also dilutes the significance of each title. Instead of feeling like monumental entries in a storied series, the game risks becoming disposable, much like annualized sports games. This approach can overshadow the effort and innovation individual developers bring to their projects, leaving even strong entries like Call of Duty World War II struggling to stand out in the long run. Which is unfortunate because I really enjoyed this title, and now I can't find a match for War Mode no matter how long I sit in the queue. That's life though, I guess. Thanks for watching.